Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, everyone, thank you very much for joining myself and my colleague Reneika Lighbourne today for an in-depth dive into precious metal investing with self-directed IRAs. We're going to be covering a lot of information here, so if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to type those in. All of your audio on your end has been muted, so make sure that you do ask those questions. My name is Alex Perny. I'm a development specialist here with Advanta IRA. I've been here since about 2012, so coming up on 10 years of doing this stuff for clients. I have a good amount of experience in the actual investments for clients. I kind of started my career with actually doing investments and helping people structure different deals. So whether it's precious metals or real estate or anything else under the sun that's self-directed, I can certainly help you out. My contact information is right up there on the screen. And I'm joined today by my colleague, Reneika. Thanks for being on with us today.
Thank you, Alex. Welcome, everyone. Again, my name is Reneika Lighbourne. I'm in the Atlanta office. I've been with Advanta now as a business development professional going on 3 years, and I'm happy to be here. I'm also a client of Advanta prior to joining, so self-directing is something that I actively do as well. Like Alex mentioned, if you have any questions, definitely put those in the chat. If you want to do a deeper dive, feel free to reach out to us. You can give us a call, send us an email, or visit advantaira.com to schedule a consultation. Okay, perfect. So just a little housekeeping before we get started. At Advanta IRA, we don't give any tax, legal, or investment advice. We also don't endorse any particular products. We're not affiliated with any third-party companies. All of the information that's going to be presented today is just more so for educational purposes. So as always, we encourage you to, please do your due diligence, consult with your professional team, your advisors before making any investments. Just a little history about Advanta and who we are. We've been in this business for nearly 20 years as one of the leading self-directed IRA administrators in the business. Our headquarters is located in Largo, Florida, which is the general Tampa Bay area. Again, Advanta has an office in Atlanta, which is where I'm based. But we do work with clients nationwide, as we now have $2 billion under our asset under our administration. If you have cash just sitting in your account with us, do know that it is FDIC insured up to the standard $250,000 limits. And also, too, for a personal approach in terms of how we separate ourselves, we do provide each of our clients a dedicated account manager to give you that concierge style service to where they're going to be with you for the life of your investment. So if you have questions relating to your account or need clarification, your account manager is definitely there to help you through that. You can certainly reach out to Alex or myself, just general questions relating to self-directing. Also, to our educational platform is second to none. We do recurring in-house webinars like today. We also have guest speakers that join us as well. I'm doing a webinar on Thursday on crowdfunding with a guest speaker. And then, of course, our Pitch, Promote, Prosper networking platform. So feel free to visit our events page and continue to join. With that, I'll turn it back over to Alex.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Reneika. And one thing I'll add on to that is we also have a podcast, the Alternative Investing Advantage podcast. You can catch me hosting a variety of different topics and interviews with people in a slightly different format that goes out every Wednesday on wherever you get your podcasts. A few takeaway points that I want everyone to make sure that they get from our webinar here today. Again, it's not super in-depth of what you need to take away, but it is very important. The types of precious metals that are available for IRA investors. Just because something inherently is metal and you'd like to buy it doesn't necessarily mean that you can with an IRA. And even some gold products that are out there that are many investors kind of look to as a standard of unit for investment in precious metals necessarily available to IRAs specifically. Things like one that brings up is the South African Cougarand. So if you want to invest in something like that with an IRA, unfortunately, it doesn't meet the fineness requirement. So understanding what types of precious metals you can actually invest in with an IRA, great point to take away. Also, how to purchase precious metals with an IRA, because anytime that you buy something with an IRA, it has to be held in custody. So meaning that these are custodial accounts, meaning that Advanta IRA, acting as the custodian and administrator of the IRA, has to facilitate and actually enact the purchase. So understanding the actual process on how that works is greatly important to this whole thing for it to work. And then also, what are the benefits of doing this? When it comes to investing, people not only need to know fundamentally and operationally how to do something, but also what's the benefit of doing so. You can invest in anything, but what are the benefits of doing this versus something else? You can buy stocks, bonds, mutual funds, you can buy real estate, and obviously we're going to talk about buying precious metals. So what are some of the actual benefits to doing so? We're going to cover that here today in this presentation. If you haven't heard about self-direction, it's understandable. There's a very large amount of money out there in retirement plans. There's roughly, as of last count, a little bit over 27 trillion, that's 27 with 4 commas behind it, amount of roughly retirement plan asset value in the United States. It is anywhere, estimation that only about 4% of that is self-directed, maybe even a smaller percentage of that is exactly what we do here. It's just that people just don't fundamentally understand that you can do these kind of investments through an IRA. And with precious metals, the IRS actually does give a thumbs up and a guideline on exactly how to do this. You just need a custodian that's willing to administer and custody those types of assets, which we're certainly more than happy to do here at Advanta. And then what exactly is a self-directed IRA? You might have heard the term self-directed IRA used by other larger banks and financial institutions out there, but in the context of what we do, a self-directed IRA gives the owner complete control over their retirement funds and their investing decisions. It's not simply just a reference into the type of assets, although more specifically to what we do, it really does kind of boil down to that. You can use these to invest in alternative assets to create diversity and build retirement wealth. And specifically, a lot of what we do is based on real estate, mortgages, private placement, so investing into pre-public companies. Precious metals is obviously what we're going to cover today, and is becoming an increasingly popular option for clients looking to hedge against inflation. New consumer pricing index numbers, although indicating that the CPI has dropped a little bit, we are still sitting at 40-year highs for inflation for the United States right now, meaning that the last time that inflation was this high, it was 1982. So that gives you an idea of just how bad inflation is. And precious metals typically have been seen as a hedge, increasing the popularity. And obviously, if you want to base some retirement plan assets on that, we're here to help you make that decision a reality. You can also trade futures and much, much more. Reneika?
Thank you, Alex. So in terms of the different types of accounts that can be self-directed, it's the ones that you're already familiar with, the traditional IRAs, the Roth IRAs. With traditional accounts, it's tax deferred, so you get those tax break up front. Obviously, when you take it out at retirement, that's when you pay those tax liabilities. With a Roth IRA, it's after-tax dollars. And then, of course, as long as you've had the account for at least 5 years and you're age 59 and a half, when you take those funds out in a Roth IRA, you pay no taxes. If you are self-employed, have a small business or a side business, you can look to self-direct a SEP, simple or solo 401k. Solo 401k is, very popular amongst, again, business owners, or we see a lot of real estate investors trend towards solo 401ks. Some lesser known accounts or educational savings account, you can open one to pay for educational related expenses for, a grandchild or, a niece or nephew. You can certainly look to self-direct an HSA to cover medical related expenses. With an HSA account, though, please make sure that it's a high deductible plan. Contact your provider just to ensure that your plan is eligible for it. And then, of course, any former employer plan qualifies to be self-directed, whether it's an old 401k or a 403b or a TSP type savings plan. The key thing, again, the contribution limits varies between the different accounts, and I'll touch on that shortly. And then, again, with the Roth, your distribution can be tax-free at retirement. So in terms of the contribution limits, and also too, just know that the deadline is coming up on Monday, the 18th. So if you want to make a contribution for last year, definitely get going on that. For traditional and Roth IRAs, you can put $6,000 a year. You have to have earned income, but you can put in $6,000 a year if you're under the age of 50. If you're over the age of 50, you have that additional $1,000 catch-up. With a SEP IRA, you can contribute up to 25% of your compensation, not to exceed $61,000. If you have a simple IRA for employees, you can put in $14,000, and then the employee can match up to 3%. With a solo 401k, which is why it's so attractive, a lot of investors like it. because you have higher contribution limits. If you're under the age of 50, you can put in 61,000. If you're over the age of 50, you have that additional catch up to where you can possibly put up to 67,500. With an ESA account, you can put in 2,000 per year per child. And then of course, with an HSA for individuals, you can put in 3,650. For a family plan, you can put in 7,300. If you're over the age of 55 for an HSA, you can put in an additional $1,000 for catch up. So in addition to making an annual contribution, you can also fund your account by doing a transfer from an existing IRA or a direct rollover from a former employer plan, like an old 401k. In a direct rollover scenario, you would actually reach out to that former employer plan, letting them know that you want to move those funds into another qualified retirement account. You're not taking a personal distribution, you're just simply moving it from one retirement account to another. You would tell them where to send a check, how it should be titled. In an IRA scenario, you would fill out, the Advanta transfer form. We would actually submit that to the other IRA custodian on your behalf. You just want to make sure whatever dollar amount that you want to transfer, it can be a partial amount, just make sure it's sitting in a cash position. So meaning if it's currently tied up in a stock or a bond, you have to liquidate those shares so it's sitting in cash. With a transfer or a direct rollover, you can do it as many times as you want to and need to. You just want to make sure that the paperwork is filled out correctly.
Great, thanks, Reneika. So getting into prohibited transactions. Some things that people need to understand is that there's certain people that you can't deal with, and there's certain items that you can't buy. The easy ones that you can't buy are things like collectibles. So you can't buy precious metal coin that is based on anything, the value is based on anything other than its just bullion content value. And you also need to make sure that you don't buy a life insurance policy. But there are also certain transactions that you cannot commit with an IRA. Now, some of them are listed up here, but basically the overriding principle that you need to follow is that you can't self-deal and you need to always operate at arm's length. So when it comes to dealing with people in your immediate family, so immediate nuclear family, so think about mother, father, son, daughter, spouse, or a business entity owned or controlled by you personally, or any one of those disqualified individuals, you can't directly deal with them. So on some of the more broader context, you can't buy or sell like a piece of real estate to those people. You also can't buy or sell precious metals to those kind of people. So if your IRA purchased metals, you couldn't do it from your son. That would be a prohibited transaction. The IRA owned precious metals and sells them to your daughter. Again, the other direction is also prohibited. So your IRA can't purchase, and those disqualified individuals can't receive in either side of the transaction anything directly from your IRA. And it also can skip generations as well. Your IRA, your father can't sell or parent can't sell precious metals to you personally, or going past you. Let's say a parent selling precious metals to your child's IRA. A lot of people like to set up Roth IRAs for their children. If you wanted to maybe try to use the precious metals as a hedge on inflation right now and buy precious metals with your child's IRA, you have to make sure that you're buying it from an arm's length dealer that has no direct personal relationship to you. So it's important to understand people whom can and can't actually invest directly with the IRA and whom you can't directly purchase or sell from. Now, here it is delineated in a picture format. So you can kind of see it up and down. The direct lineal descendants or ascendants of you personally are the people whom you cannot buy precious metals from personally from their IRA, and then your IRA can also not directly deal with these people as well. So once you're moved out of this, if you want to buy or sell from your, let's say, your brother or your cousin or an aunt or an uncle or someone like that, those would all be fine. Once you're moved out of this directly up and down family tree line, you can then in turn make those types of deals happen. But again, it's really important to understand the basics of what you can and cannot do with an IRA when it comes to precious metals, mainly just understanding that you have to keep it at arm's length. It's the minimum fineness requirement, and also the coin, if you're investing in coinage, that's precious metals, can't be anything traded on other than just its bullion content value. So making sure that if you're buying something, just the gold content that is derived its value from, not something as such as its scarcity of being, let's say, a rare version of a certain coin in your purchasing efforts for precious metals. Reneika?
Thank you, Alex. So one of the key aspects of precious metal investing that investors enjoy is the ability to purchase inside of a self-directed IRA. Investing in precious metals, we know, comes with a list of benefits, and that's why many of our clients here at Advanta IRA choose to do so. And of course, you're, like Alex mentioned earlier, you're seeing an uptick and increase in investors looking to diversify into precious metals. We know that metals continue to appeal as a fundamental source of wealth. It is used as a hedge against inflation during economic uncertainty like today's market. Also, historically, precious metal prices tend to rise at or above the inflation rate. And, you know, with most precious metal, gold in particular, it is known to be recession-proof. Precious metals are tangible assets. And with that, it has an inherent value. Because of that, it poses less of a risk and is considered a safe haven where investors place their capital to help preserve it. It is also fairly liquid. Your IRA can quickly sell metals and convert it into cash because regardless of what the economy is doing, whether it's going up or down, you're going to find ample amount of buyers to be able to sell to. So some of the benefits of holding precious metals in your IRA includes, this is not a comprehensive list by any means, but I just want to touch on some of the key factors. One, security. So precious metal like gold and silver have proven time and time again have earned the position to be considered a safe haven investment, just because they do provide stability during down markets or stressful times by reducing both volatility and risk, thus being able to allow you to guard against unstable fluctuation. We know precious metals like gold and silver has been around literally since the beginning of time and has many different uses. A company may go out of business and their stock is no longer available for investors to trade, whereas we will likely always have gold and silver in circulation. So it literally is a timeless investment. A second benefit is diversification. We've all heard the saying, don't put all of your eggs in one basket. Well, with precious metals, the price tend to move more so independently from other markets, like stocks and bonds. Thus, it gives you the ability to hedge your retirement savings by investing in one of the oldest asset classes. The continuous increase in value, the low risk, the market stability makes precious metals an ideal alternative investment to diversify your portfolio. As a self-directed investor, you're always in control in what you choose to invest in. With metals, you maintain control by determining when you want to buy, when you want to sell. With an IRA in precious metals, there's no self-storage, and Alex will talk through the importance of that later on. But the asset is owned by your retirement account, so it's yours to do as you wish in terms of you can sell it at any time, or you can simply just look to hold it and pass it on to the next generation if you choose to do so. Another benefit of investing in precious metals in your IRA is growth. When you look at prices of groceries or gas, it costs more dollars today than it did a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And as we see fiat currency is weakening in value, we can see precious metals steadily marching on the upside, forcing an increase in market demand and also an opportunity for more favorable returns for self-directed investors if it's an asset that you hold in your retirement account. So precious metals, they are considered a more stable and predictable investment. We can look back just a short 2 to 3 year time frame in terms of the value of gold and silver continuing to rise during the pandemic that we just all experienced. And then finally, a final benefit that I'll touch on is the tax advantages. Like all investments that are made inside of your retirement account, the appreciation, the gains of that investment actually flows back into the retirement account, tax-free or tax deferred. So the same thing applies when you're purchasing precious metals in your IRA. So as a self-directed investor, you need to determine, why you want to invest in precious metal. Is it to capitalize on higher prices? Is it to hedge against inflation that Alex mentioned earlier? Is it to use as a store of value for your retirement account? Is it to diversify your IRA, or some combination of all of the above? So next, we want to take a look at what precious metals can you invest in for a retirement account. You can certainly invest in gold, silver, platinum, or palladium. But just be mindful that the IRS does have specific standards that precious metals in your retirement account must meet. So for instance, with gold, we know it's the most well-known and investable precious metal there is. It is money, but for the IRS, for IRAs investing in gold, the gold must be at least 99.5% in purity. There is an exception with the American Eagle, but the requirement are 99.5%. With silver, it is the second most common precious metal. Silver is very multifaceted in that, for both investments and also industrial application, but the requirement for silver is it must be 99.9% pure. With platinum and palladium, they both have to be 99.95% pure. Both, again, have a lot of industrial application as well. So again, you see that steadily increase in these types of metals. Before going into the steps of how to invest in an IRA, I want to quickly cover what kind of precious metal options are available. So gold and silver coins are the most popular options. With coins, they are minted and guaranteed by governments. So, and because of that, they're monetized. You'll always be able to, I guess they'll always be worth at least the face value and can be used as money. Whereas with rounds, it's usually less expensive than coins. And while some government may mint rounds, they're usually more heavily produced by private minters. And then the last option is bars. Gram for gram, generally bars are the least expensive of the three. Some special considerations. It's worth noting that from an IRA perspective, you do have to consider a few extra things when thinking about investing in precious metals in your IRA. You want to, account for the costs associated with the purchase, the actual storage of the physical metal, and, your IRA applicable fees, the transaction and record keeping, and so forth. So if I go to the next slide. So yeah, moving right along, we'll take a look at the steps of how to invest in precious metal in your IRA. First and foremost, you want to go ahead and open and fund your Advanta IRA account, whether you're looking to do a traditional or Roth IRA. Again, that's a personal decision on which account works best for you. If you are a business owner, again, you can do a SEP, simple or solo 401k to purchase metals. There's generally a low barrier to entry for precious metals, so you can certainly buy smaller dollar accounts like an ESA and an HSA to again be able to grow those ESAs and HSA accounts. To fund your account, you're looking to transfer from an existing IRA, direct roll from a former employer plan, or start brand new by making an annual cash contribution. Let's see, step 2, you want to choose, step 2 is choose a precious metal dealer. You'll select a precious metal dealer. You'll direct Advanta IRA to send the money to that dealer to purchase, whether it's going to be gold, silver, platinum, or palladium on behalf of your IRA. However, before purchasing, I do want to emphasize, you want to make sure that you want to do your due diligence on the metals dealer itself. You want to, buy from a reputable dealer. You want to make sure that you're looking at making sure that the dealer has, good reviews. You want to ask around. You want to call them directly and ask them probing questions. You want to find out if they belong to an industry trade association group. Advanta, we do have relationships with certain dealers that our clients have used over the years, but this is your responsibility to make sure that you've done your own due diligence. You feel comfortable with that particular dealer, that they're reputable, and you can confirm their quality. For me as a client, this is not me speaking or endorsing anyone in particular, but 3 or 4 years ago, I purchased some metals in my IRA with Advanta, and I looked around. I looked at a couple companies, but I decided to go with Money Metals, and it worked out favorable for me. So again, you want to make sure that you do your own due diligence when it comes to selecting the right dealer for your IRA. So the next step is deciding what products to buy. Again, when you work with the dealer to select, you want to find out which IRA products they have available. If you're not familiar with, the type of coin you're looking to purchase, a good dealer will educate you on your options or provide you some more so user-friendly resources to kind of help you better understand what your options are, to help you make an informed decision before you purchase. And by all means, this is not a this is not an all-inclusive list, but I just want to highlight some of the most popular options that we see clients purchase. So yes, moving right along, if we look at some of the most, some examples of some of the acceptable gold products, again, it includes the American Eagle bullion, which is one of the most common coins. We have the Australian Luna series. We have the Canadian Maple. We have the Chinese Panda coins. With silver, same thing applies in terms of acceptable products. You have the American Eagle bullion. We have the America the Beautiful coin. Just bear with me. Let me see if Alex is back. You have the American Beautiful coin. You have the British Britannia. You have the Canadian Maple. The list is again, this is not a full list by any means, but this is just some of the general ones that we typically see clients invest in. If it's, platinum, you can see the American Eagle bullion. With palladium, it's the Canadian Maple Leaf coins. So I did have a question that came in. So, and I think I'll probably reference this, but the question is, I wouldn't mind knowing what to do with bars I already have. So unfortunately, if you currently own, precious metal or any, asset outside of your retirement account, unfortunately, you cannot transfer those assets into a retirement account. That's what Alex was referring to in terms of prohibited transactions. So if you own, a bar today, you cannot, sell it to your IRA, or you cannot, transfer. So it looks like Alex is having some technical difficulties, unfortunately. Moving right along, I have the next question. So how do we access the recording? The recording will be up in 24 to 48 hours. So, you should receive an automatic email with the link to it. If not, if you go to our YouTube page, it'll be available within 24 to 40 hours. So you can certainly reach out to myself or Alex. So reminder, when it comes to bullions, coins, rounds, they have to meet the minimum requirement that I talked about earlier in terms of 99.95% or 99.9% if it's silver. So next step is, choosing a depository. So with precious metals investing in a self-directed IRA, it must be stored in an approved depository. At Advanta, we have relationships with 9 of them, which is a wide selection, an ample selection for our clients to choose from. And some of the well-known depositories that we work with include First State Depository and Delaware Depository, both located in Delaware. We also, again, work with Money Metals Depository. You can invest, you can have, Dakota Depository Company as an option as well. For self-directed investors, our clients, you can invest internationally as well. We have relationships with, for example, Strategic Wealth Preservations in the Cayman Islands if you're looking to hold precious metals overseas. So step 5, in terms of completing the actual transaction itself, once you've have your IRA set up with us, so you have it funded, you've selected your dealer that you want to work with, you've selected the depository that you prefer to have store the actual metals, you can complete the purchase. Advanta IRA will handle the payments based upon your direction and obviously your explicit consent. And then of course the metals dealer will then ship the precious metal to the depository based on that transaction. You'll get confirmation of that actual transaction, and then of course the transaction is complete. So it's pretty straightforward. Once you have everything set up, you've identified which dealer you want to work with or you want to purchase from, and of course which depository that you want to house everything. And with that, it would be Alex's slide. So just bear with me. I don't know if he's back in. Just let's see. So I'm going to go through the checkbook control feature. And when it comes to, using a checkbook control feature to purchase, precious metals or investing in general. So in this scenario, the checkbook control, you first and foremost set up your account with us, you fund your account with us. The money is only going to sit with us temporarily until you take the additional steps of setting up that actual LLC that your IRA actually own. You can act as manager, or you can certainly have a third party act as manager of that LLC. So it's very important that it's manager managed. And then, of course, you'll draft an operating agreement document. That operating agreement document is going to show that the IRA is the actual owner of that LLC. Advanta, as the IRA administrator custodian, signs that operating agreement document on behalf of the IRA. And then ultimately, you give your consent with self-directing. Again, nothing happens until you say it does. You're always in control. So you give your consent. Advanta will then issue a check from your IRA account with us in the name of that brand new LLC that you just opened up, that's owned by your retirement account. Send you that check, and then you get to go to whichever bank you want to bank with. So whether it's a big bank or a small bank, you open up a brand new checking account for that LLC. You have the authority to do that because, again, you're the manager, or you're having someone act as manager. You have all of the applicable paperwork to show. And then, of course, you deposit those funds, and now you literally have checkbook control. So in this case, when coming to purchase, precious metals using an LLC, you still have to be mindful that you're not holding, you're not taking possession of that actual precious metal. In this case, you still want to identify which dealer you want to work with to purchase from. In this case, instead of Advanta sending the money directly to the dealer, because you have control over those retirement funds, you would actually send payment to that dealer to purchase on behalf of the LLC. And then, of course, again, whatever depository that you decide to go with, the dealer will then ship the precious metal to that depository to store on your behalf. So some of the pros and cons when it comes to using checkbook control, again, you have quick access to the funds to make purchases, whether it's for IRA, for precious metals, or it's for some other investment. You do have lesser administrative fees because all of the investments are being held directly within that one entity, which is the LLC. And then, of course, too, the titling is actually title in the name of the LLC, so it does provide you some added layer of protection or some anonymity. Like, if I make an investment in my IRA, I necessarily don't want to say it's my IRA, so I would just simply put my account number. In this case, with an LLC feature, you would just put the name of the LLC. So Blue Sky LLC is buying precious metals or whatever type of coin or bars you're purchasing. And then, of course, it gives you the ability to, in addition to purchasing precious metals, you can also hold alternative assets like real estate, notes, and mortgages. You can also, if you choose to, you can have the flexibility of opening up a brokerage account in the name of that LLC and actually be in the stock market at the same time in that LLC while also holding alternatives. Some of the cons to be mindful of is to make sure that you're responsible for the upkeep of that actual LLC, with the state. So those annual fees to maintain that account to make sure it's still active. You want to also maintain record keeping for the actual LLC itself. On an annual basis, Advanta will ask you, hey, what's the valuation of that LLC? So whether you have a property or you have precious metal, you relay the value by doing, whether it's tax assessed value or, appraised value of that metal, you relay it back to us, and then we do the reporting to the IRS on the back end. So with checkbook control, the same rules apply, though. You want to be mindful that, any money leaving that LLC bank account is for your retirement. Any money coming back in is, from the returns of that investment. So if you sell coins or bars, the funds from that flows back into the retirement account. You don't want to take those funds in that LLC bank account and, do something like, not that you would, but you don't want to, go to Vegas or Miami to party or anything like that. And then, of course, because you're responsible for, oversight, you want to make sure that you're mindful of the, what a prohibited transaction would be, or making sure that you're keeping everything at arm's length. Because you have great support here at Advanta, you have an account manager, you have myself, Alex, and my colleagues, you can certainly reach out to us. We don't give you advice, but we can certainly kind of clarify whatever the IRS rules or guidelines based on what is it that you're looking to do. And then, of course, some additional capital calls can be problematic in terms of making sure that you have liquid cash in there if you needed to make additional investments. So some of the pros in terms of buying directly through the IRA is, it's easier to keep arm's length from the IRA. It allows you to do what you allows Advanta to do what we do best in terms of, actually record keeping the account, doing everything based on your direction, and you funding the next best investment that you want your IRA to participate in. And then again, because of that, you're less likely in an IRA scenario to do a prohibited transaction. And Advanta, as the administrator, as the record keeper, we'll make sure that we keep, clear records with us. Our clients do have access to an online portal with us. So, for example, anytime, money comes in or out of your account, you get a notification of that. But also, too, you have access to your statements, so you can kind of see clear records of the activity in your retirement account. And then, of course, we're not a nonprofit, as much as we're not the highest in the industry in terms of cost, but also too, we're not the lowest. Our focus is quality of service with our clients. But you do want to be mindful of the actual fees associated with, having and maintaining an account with us. If you do LLC, again, you can have as many investments in that LLC and, only pay a transaction fee for that one LLC. Whereas if you do it directly in the IRA, if you're having, real estate, or you have precious metal, or you have another investment, then that's a transaction fee related to each of those assets. And then, of course, your annual record keeping. And then, we're very responsive in terms of turnaround. That's one of the things that our clients really love about us in terms of, 24 to 48 hours, we can action something for you. But with checkbook control, because you literally control the purse string, you can make an investment, or have the funds sent, pretty much immediately because you control those funds. Whereas with doing it directly through the IRA, you do have to wait, based on our turnaround time. I do want to touch on the case study, and I think Alex was going to emphasize this, but there was a case, the MCNULTY case. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but so the MCNULTY, they had IRA, not with Advanta, but they had a self-directed IRA account, and they purchased, precious metals instead of going through, the rules and guidelines of the IRS outline in terms of no self-storage. They actually opened up an LLC. They purchased, precious metals, but instead of having it sent to a depository for proper storage, they actually had the precious metals sent to them, and they stored it in their personal residence, which is an absolute no-no. And they eventually went to court, and the IRS found that they were what they did was prohibited, because again, you need to be able to show there's no direct contact in terms of this case with precious metals. I'm sorry, my email. Let me close that out. For some reason, I didn't block it out. In the MCNULTY case, unfortunately, they held possession of it, and because of that, the IRS and the courts were able to find that they were in violation because they didn't have unrestricted access to the precious metal was actually owned by the IRA, and because of that, you're then subject to your retirement account. In this case, in an IRA, the IRA was subject to for taxes and penalties. It pretty much you lose the ability to have an IRA once it was found out that what they did was considered prohibited transaction. Let's see. So some final points to remember. I do want to touch on, again, Alex mentioned that your IRA is not allowed to hold any rare or collectible coins. A question came in earlier. If you have, currently, if you have precious metals, you cannot transfer, you cannot sell them to your IRA or your retirement account. It is considered a prohibited transaction in that case. Also, too, no home or self-storage of precious metals that is owned by your IRA. Again, the MCNULTY case, which was settled, I think, last year, 2021, showed that because they had, personal possession of the actual metals that was owned by the retirement account, they essentially disqualified their retirement account and had to pay taxes and penalties because of that. So, while precious metals provides an effective way to diversify your retirement account, you still want to make sure that you are doing proper due diligence. As with every investment, there are associated risks. So you want to make sure that, again, you're not investing in collectibles, you're investing in metals that meet the IRS requirements in terms of purity. You want to make sure that you're having a depository to properly store those metals, especially when you're using the LLC feature. and that you're not looking to transfer any personal metals that you may have into your retirement account. Let's see, just bear with me 1 second. So when you're looking to get started with self-directing your retirement account, Advanta, we can get you going in 3 easy steps. Step 1, first and foremost, you want to open up your account, fill out the appropriate application. We'll be able to guide you through that. You can do it electronically via DocuSign. Once your account is open, you will be paired with a dedicated account manager as someone who will be able to be with you every step of the way through the life of your account with us. Step 2 is funding your account. Again, you have several options. You can transfer from an existing IRA. You can do a partial amount. You can do a direct rollover from that old, TSP or 457 plan, or you can, make an annual cash contribution or do a combination of all 3. And then finally, start investing. What is it that you have an interest in? Are you looking to invest in precious metals as a way to hedge against inflation, or, more so look to diversify your portfolio? When it comes to self-directing, it's near limitless in terms of the options available to you. And with that, I will go ahead and see if there's any more questions. Okay, so my apologies for the technical difficulties. We'll make sure to try to get it cleaned up for next time. I do have a webinar on Thursday with a guest speaker. So definitely, if you're able to attend, feel free to do so. If you have any more questions, feel free to enter that in the chat. I will give it a couple more minutes before closing out. Again, any questions relating to self-directing, if you want to do, just a general scenario, give me a call, send an email, or you can reach out to my colleague, Alex, as well. And we'll be happy to assist you with that. So if there are no more questions, I will go ahead and close our webinar. This recording will be up within 24 to 48 hours. Thank you, everyone. I hope you all have a great rest of your day.